giants, icons, bodybuilding legends. But behind the outrageous muscle mass and the bright stage lights, there's a side of the sport almost no one wants to talk about. How far can the human body really go? What's the cost of living at the absolute edge? And is the price of glory higher than anyone's willing to admit? Today, you're about to hear stories that shocked fans around the world and forced one uncomfortable question into the spotlight: is anything worth it to become the greatest? Get ready to reflect on ambition, pressure, and the real consequences that come with chasing greatness. When the conversation turns to extreme size in bodybuilding, one name always comes up: Greg Kovacs. Standing around 6 feet 4 inches, 1.93 meters, and reportedly weighing about 440 pounds in the offseason, roughly 200 kilograms, he became a living symbol of an era when bigger seemed to automatically mean better. Known as the Canadian lumberjack, Kovacs had a level of mass that almost didn't look real. In the offseason, his physique went beyond what most people, even within professional bodybuilding, thought was possible. Massive shoulders, enormous legs, and a frame that looked like it came straight out of a comic book. But once he stepped on stage, something became clear: despite the unbelievable size, he lacked the sharp conditioning and refined symmetry needed to dominate. And in competitive bodybuilding, those details matter a lot. His best finish at the pro level was 13th place in major competitions. That says something important: being huge isn't enough. The sport demands balance, proportion, conditioning, and presentation. Kovacs embodied the extreme side of the mass monster philosophy, and at the same time, he exposed its limits when pushed too far. After retiring from competition, Greg stayed involved in the industry, mentoring younger athletes and remaining active in the bodybuilding scene. But in 2013, at just 44 years old, he suffered a fatal heart attack. The news sent shockwaves through the community and reignited an old debate: how much can the human body really handle when it's pushed that far beyond the norm? Greg Kovacs became more than just an athlete. He became a symbol of the size above all era, a reflection of a mindset that shaped the sport for years. Dallas McCarver was widely seen as one of the biggest rising stars of the new IFBB generation. At a very young age, he had already racked up major wins between 2012 and 2015, showcasing a physique that stood out for both its size and muscle density. Many believed he had everything it took to become one of the top names in the open division in the years ahead. Then, in 2017, at the Arnold Classic Australia, fans witnessed something unsettling. Dallas collapsed on stage while posing. At the time, many assumed it was extreme exhaustion or dehydration, unfortunately not uncommon during peak competition prep. Later, it was revealed that he had been battling a respiratory infection that developed into bronchitis. Still, the incident left a heavy sense of concern in the air. Just months later, in August 2017, the news no one wanted to hear became reality. Dallas was found dead at home at just 26 years old. The shock was immediate. A young athlete, in peak physical shape, with a future that seemed almost guaranteed, suddenly gone. How could a body that strong simply fail? The autopsy revealed alarming findings: his heart weighed nearly twice the normal size, his kidneys were enlarged, and his liver was approximately 4 times the expected size for a healthy adult. He was also found to have thyroid cancer. Taken together, these factors painted a picture of a body under extreme stress. The conversation about performance-enhancing substances, including anabolic steroids and other compounds commonly used in professional bodybuilding, came roaring back into the spotlight. Dallas' case forced the industry to confront a difficult reality: the intense pressure placed on young athletes to reach increasingly extreme standards of size and conditioning faster than ever before. In 2013, the bodybuilding world was blindsided by a name that went viral almost overnight: Mustafa Ismail. Known as Big Mo, the Egyptian athlete grabbed global attention with a jaw-dropping claim: 31-inch biceps, which is about 79 centimeters. For a lot of people, that sounded flat-out impossible. And yet, he officially made it into the Guinness World Records as the man with the largest biceps in the world. Mustafa insisted he had never used steroids or synthol. According to him, his size was the result of intense training, a strict diet, and gifted genetics. He claimed to consume massive amounts of protein and carbs daily, along with gallons of water, and said he inherited his build from his father, who was reportedly a fighter. But the big question lingered: can genetics and discipline alone really explain measurements that extreme? Skepticism started to grow fast. Experts pointed out the unusual shape of his arms, raising suspicions about localized injectable substances. At one point, a television program even ran imaging scans to try to verify his claims. Still, the debate didn't go away. The line between natural muscle and artificial enhancement seemed blurrier than ever. Over time, investigations suggested signs consistent with substances like synthol and injectable oil used to artificially increase muscle size, even though there was never a direct public admission. Eventually, Mustafa was removed from the Guinness records. The title that once put him on top of headlines turned into a full-blown controversy. The story of Mustafa Ismail isn't just about size. It opens a bigger conversation about authenticity in the sport. In an era driven by numbers, likes, and viral records, how far are some willing to go to stand out? And when the pressure to impress keeps rising, do ethical lines start to fade? If there's one name that represents the most extreme side of the quest for massive arms, it's Greg Valentino. He became world famous for claiming 28-inch biceps around 71 centimeters. Visually shocking, wildly disproportionate, and impossible to ignore, his arms quickly became his signature. But behind that exaggerated image was a much deeper and more complicated story. Greg openly admitted to heavy anabolic steroid use. On top of that, he used synthol and injectable oil applied directly into the muscle to artificially inflate its size. Unlike real muscle growth, synthol doesn't improve strength or performance. It purely changes appearance. And that pursuit of visual impact slowly turned his body into something closer to a risky experiment than athletic development. Things took a dangerous turn when Greg began reusing needles for his injections. That decision led to a severe infection. What started as an attempt to keep his arms looking bigger escalated into a medical emergency. He ultimately had to undergo surgery to remove part of his biceps in order to save his arm. The very feature that made him famous nearly became his greatest loss. And the story didn't end there. Greg Valentino was later arrested for involvement in the sale of anabolic steroids and other illegal substances. The same underground world that helped build his image also put him on a collision course with the law. His journey shifted from shock and fascination to controversy and real-world consequences far beyond the stage. Not every unforgettable bodybuilding story is tied to substances or extreme mass. Some take a different, unexpected turn. Sifiso Lungelo Thabit was a 23-year-old South African athlete, full of energy and charisma. He had a unique way of entering the stage, running out and performing a backflip before starting his routine. It was his signature move. His moment to electrify the crowd. The goal was simple: hype up the audience, show confidence, and stand out. In a sport where presentation matters, grabbing attention can feel like part of the game plan. But on that night in 2017, something went terribly wrong. As he attempted the flip, Sifiso failed to complete the rotation and landed directly on his neck. The impact was catastrophic. The injury was fatal, and his death occurred almost instantly. The audience, which seconds earlier had been ready to cheer, was left in stunned silence. A young athlete, in peak physical condition, lost his life in a matter of seconds. This case is considered unique in competitive bodybuilding. Unlike other tragedies often connected to internal health complications, here the risk came from the performance itself. Sifiso's story forces us to think. In sports, in life, and even on social media, how far is too far when trying to impress? At what point does boldness quietly cross the line into recklessness? Rich Penna wasn't just a bodybuilder. He was an entrepreneur, influencer, content creator, and one of the most visible figures in modern fitness culture. With millions of followers across social media, he built a brand around intensity, authenticity, and above all, transparency. Unlike many in the industry, Rich openly talked about anabolic steroid use in professional bodybuilding. He didn't sugarcoat it, but he didn't hide it either. In his videos, he often advised young athletes to stay natural for as long as possible. At the same time, he admitted that at the pro level, performance-enhancing drugs were simply part of the reality. That stance split opinions. Some saw him as brutally honest. Others believed he was normalizing a dangerous lifestyle. But one thing was undeniable: Rich embodied the bigger is better mindset. In August 2017, at 46 years old, Rich collapsed at home and fell into a coma. The news spread fast throughout the fitness world. Thousands of fans followed every update, hoping for a recovery. 2 weeks later, confirmation of his death hit hard. The impact was especially heavy because he was someone who openly acknowledged the risks. The autopsy revealed that his heart and liver were more than twice the normal size of a healthy adult. Even for people who had followed his journey closely, that detail was shocking. The body he had built over decades had been under enormous strain. Once again, the debate about the limits of the human physique came roaring back. Rich Piana's story reignited a question that still lingers in the sport: how far should bigger is better really go? When visual impact, followers, and recognition become the goal, the standards can keep escalating, sometimes beyond what the body can handle. Sally McNeil's story is one of the most controversial ever linked to bodybuilding. She was a professional bodybuilder, a former U.S. Marine, and known for her intense personality. On stage, she represented discipline and strength. Off-stage, her life was marked by conflict and episodes of aggressive behavior that had already raised concerns long before tragedy struck. Sally was married to Ray McNeil, who was also a bodybuilder. According to reports, their relationship was turbulent. In 1995, after an argument at home, the situation spiraled completely out of control. Sally grabbed a shotgun and shot her husband. He did not survive. The case quickly made national headlines, not only because of the crime itself, but because of the context surrounding it. Toxicology reports showed the presence of anabolic steroids in both of their systems. The media immediately linked the incident to so-called roid rage, a popular term used to describe aggressive outbursts associated with steroid use. The case became a symbol of an ongoing debate: to what extent can performance-enhancing substances influence behavior? During the trial, Sally claimed self-defense, stating she had suffered abuse. Despite that, she was convicted and sentenced to 19 years in prison. Her story later became the subject of documentaries, in-depth analysis, and broader conversations about domestic violence, steroid use, and personal responsibility. Sally McNeil's case forces the sport to confront a different dimension. It's not just about muscle or performance, it's about emotional balance and real-world consequences that go far beyond the stage. Shawn Rhoden made history when he won the Mr. Olympia title at 43 years old. In an era dominated by ultramassive physiques, he brought back more classic lines, a tighter waist, and a look many considered a near-perfect balance between size and proportion. His victory wasn't just another win, it ended a long-standing reign that few believed could be broken. That moment felt like the beginning of a new chapter in bodybuilding. A more mature, refined champion. Shawn proved there was still room for presentation, symmetry, and detail, even in the age of extreme mass. He stood at the absolute peak of the sport. But not long after, his career took an unexpected turn. A serious accusation surfaced, leading to his removal from competition. Regardless of the debates and differing opinions that followed, the impact on his career was immediate. The athlete who had just conquered bodybuilding's biggest stage suddenly found himself surrounded by controversy. Years later, at 46 years old, Shawn Rhoden passed away from a heart attack. The news stunned the fitness community. A recent champion, still relatively young, whose story blended triumph and turmoil, met an early end. The contrast between his highest moment and his final chapter left a heavy silence in the sport. Andreas Munzer became known as one of the most shredded athletes in bodybuilding history. His level of conditioning was so extreme that many estimated his body fat to be around 3%, an incredibly low number by any standard, roughly the same whether you're measuring in the US or anywhere else in the world. On stage, his physique looked carved out of stone. Deep cuts, roadmap veins, and muscle separation that almost didn't look real. But behind that jaw-dropping appearance, there was a price very few could truly see. Unlike other competitors who cycled between bulking phases and cutting phases, Munzer kept his body in near-contest condition almost year-round. He competed frequently, always chasing maximum dryness and detail. To maintain that look, anabolic steroids and powerful diuretics became a central part of his strategy. And the more he competed, the more he had to keep his body in an aggressively depleted state. The problem is, the human body isn't designed to live at that edge non-stop. In 1996, at just 31 years old, Andreas began experiencing severe abdominal pain. What initially seemed like a simple health issue escalated quickly into a life-threatening situation. He suffered multiple organ failure. The same body that had been admired for its razor-sharp precision simply shut down. The autopsy revealed alarming details. His heart was approximately twice the normal size of a healthy adult's, and a significant amount of medication was still present in his stomach. Those findings shook the bodybuilding community and turned Munzer into a symbol of the sport's most extreme risks. He wasn't just an ultra-defined athlete, he became a representation of how far someone can push the pursuit of physical perfection. Mike Matarazzo was one of the stand-up names of the 1990s. Known for massive arms and incredibly thick calves, he carved out his place among the giants of the sport and reached the top 10 at the 1998 Mr. Olympia. In an era dominated by sheer mass, Mike embodied intensity, size, and relentless dedication. What most people didn't see was the silent toll that lifestyle was taking on his body. To sustain that extreme muscle mass, his diet was just as extreme. Reports suggest he consumed up to 6.6 pounds of meat per day, about 3 kilograms. The goal was simple: keep the body fueled to keep growing. But along with the calories came sky-high cholesterol levels. At one point, his blood work showed numbers far beyond what would be considered normal or safe by medical standards in the US or anywhere else. Over time, the consequences became unavoidable. More than 70% of his heart function was compromised. He underwent multiple heart surgeries and suffered several heart attacks throughout the years. The strength he displayed under stage lights stood in sharp contrast to the fragility developing inside his chest. Even after retirement, the health issues didn't go away. Friends and fans organized fundraisers to help cover medical expenses. In 2014, Mike Matarazzo passed away after years of battling severe heart complications. His story became a clear warning about the cumulative risks carried throughout a bodybuilding career. One of the most powerful moments of his journey came from his own reflection. He once stated that his success in bodybuilding may have cost him around 20 years of his life. A heavy, direct statement, and one that's hard to ignore. At the end of the day, these stories aren't just about massive muscles or championship titles. They're about choices. About limits. About how far someone is willing to go in pursuit of recognition. Bodybuilding is a sport built on extreme discipline, but it's also a constant reminder that the human body has boundaries. And ignoring them can lead to real consequences. Every athlete you've heard about here left a mark on the sport. Some through size. Some through aesthetics. Some through controversy. But all of them, without exception, teach us something. And maybe the biggest lesson is this: progress has to move hand in hand with awareness. Because real strength isn't just about lifting weight, it's about knowing when to pull back. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these stories hit you the hardest? Do you think modern bodybuilding is safer today, or are we still living in the bigger is better era? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's turn this into a smart, respectful conversation. If this video gave you insight and something to think about, go ahead and hit the like button. It really helps the channel keep producing deeper, more complete content. And if you're into in-depth analysis, powerful stories, and real discussions about the world of bodybuilding, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. If you'd like to support the project even more and unlock exclusive content, consider becoming a channel member. Your support truly makes a difference. And now, click on the video showing on your end screen. It connects perfectly with this topic and reveals another surprising side of bodybuilding. I'll see you there.